All right, this is my labor and delivery story, and it's pretty short. I woke up on Thursday, my due date morning, just December 31st, at about 1:30 a.m. with like stomach cramping, feeling like I was sick, like just a little sick. I went to the bathroom, and I was still feeling bad after that, so I still went back and laid down for I laid down and fell asleep from about 1:30. I mean, I went to sleep at 2:30 and I fell asleep till about 3:30. Woke up at 3:30. I still felt kind of bad. Went to the bathroom again, but mostly my stomach was hurting, and I was like, okay, this is not. I figured they weren't connected, so I'm like, hey, maybe these are really contractions. Maybe I'm just not feeling stomach cramps like I have before, and they were just stomach cramps. But no, I was like, maybe these are really contractions. So I was kind of watching the clock, kind of not, because I'm like, okay, these could be nothing. They could just go away, false labor, or whatever. But no, they were real, and they were coming about every 5 to 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, and then they got closer. So from about 3:30 to about 6, well, 3:30 to about 5:30, I was doing those contractions, going through those contractions. They were about 5 minutes at that time, and they were pretty intense. I was kind of breathing through them, but they weren't really bad. I dozed off at about 5:30, and then I woke up at 6, like shot out of my sleep from the pain. Like the pain it's like it was turned up 2 levels, like, and then they were starting to be stronger and more, well, stronger and more consistent, like every 3 minutes. And I really had a doctor's appointment to go to that morning, my due date morning. My doctor's appointment was going to be at 9, and I was just telling myself all night, like, okay, this is the real thing. I'm just going to try to stick it out to my doctor's appointment. My doctor's office is right by the hospital, and I'm just going to drive myself. Well, me and my boyfriend were going to go. And so I told my mom, no, I texted my mom around 6:30, and because she's usually up that early, and I'm like, Mom, I think I'm in labor. And so she called me, and then I realized that I couldn't talk on the phone. I was like, this is the real deal. Like, I can't even talk. So I know, they always say if you can't walk or talk, then it's probably, the real thing. So that's about 6:30. I call my mom, and so we all get ready. She comes upstairs to my room, and she's like, okay, well, how often are your contractions? I'm like, they're like 3 minutes. She can tell that I'm in a lot of pain. Like, I have to breathe through them. I'm doing my focal points and effleurage, Um, and so by the time we all get dressed, take a shower, and leave, it's about 7:40. I called the doctor. My doctor. He wasn't the doctor on call, but he was in the office that morning. And like I said, the office is right there by the hospital. So he was able to meet me up there. I got to the hospital and went to the like the triage place before they admit you. I got in there at about 8:15, and I'm having cramps every 2 3 minutes, really really painful. The nurse checks me, and she checks me, and I'm like, how many centimeters am I? And she kind of ignores me, like she didn't hear me, but clearly she heard me because I was talking directly to her. I was like, how many centimeters am I? And she was like, you're about 3. And I'm like, 3? I was 4 to 5 centimeters. They said I was 4 to 5 centimeters last week. And she's like, oh, well, you're really 6, but I just didn't want to get your hopes up. And I'm just like, okay, 6 is fine. As long as they didn't tell me I was 3, that would have been ridiculous. So, um, of course, she's like, okay, well, I'm going to see the doctor says, blah, blah. And she's like, we're going to admit you. And I'm like, okay, duh. I could have told you that. And so they admit me to the hospital. And I get settled in my room at about, because I had to wait for them to do some crap. And, she checked me and everything. So I got into my room at about 8:45, 8:50. And I'm in my room having contractions in pain. They're asking me all these stupid questions. Well, they're not stupid, but at the time I'm just like, okay. They're asking me all these questions. And the doctor comes in. He's like, well, I'm gonna go back over to the office, and I'm gonna take some more patients while we wait for you to progress. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I'm having contractions. I'm like, okay, I have to go to the bath. No, I told them, I was like, they were like, do you want an epidural? I'm like, no, I don't want an epidural, but I'm just so tired. I've been up since 3:30 with these contractions, and I just really want to rest and relax. And I feel like if I got some rest, I'll be stronger to take the contractions. So she's like, okay, well, we have to see if the baby's reactive, and you can't be past 8 centimeters. And I'm like, okay. But I'm having steady contractions, so I'm like, okay, I'm probably going to be past 8. I just had a feeling, a hunch. So I'm in the room. So I'm in the room, and I'm having contractions, and I was like, I have to go to the bathroom. Like, I just really feel like I had to go to the bathroom. Like, not quite pushing, because, I mean, I know that's what the sensation feels like when you have to push, but I didn't think that's what it was. So, and I really didn't think I was that far along yet. And so I go to the bathroom, and I push for like a half a second. And I'm like, well, my mom was like, I don't think you should do that. And so she asked the nurse, and the nurse was like, if you have to, just let it come, but don't push. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not. But I was sitting there, and I was taking my contractions, and it kind of gave me a little bit of relief. So I sat there for about 5 minutes, and then, like, this is kind of TMI, but when I went to wipe, it was like kind of some blood there. And it kind of freaked me out because never in my pregnancy have I had spotting, even though it's normal and everything. I never had that. And so it kind of freaked me out for a second. I'm like, okay, told the nurse. She was like, oh, it's probably just because you're dilating. So I get back out the bathroom, and they check me, and I want to say it's about 9:30 by that time. And she's like, oh, you're 8 centimeters, so you can't have the medicine. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So that was just bad news at that point. So I'm just dealing with the contractions, whatever. And then a couple of contractions later, I'm like, I have to push. I know I have to push. I know that's what I'm feeling like. I feel like I have to push something out, the baby, clearly. And of course, my doctor wasn't there. He was across the street or whatever. And they're like, well, of course we have to wait for the doctor to get back, whatever. And one nurse gave me some really helpful advice. She was like, just rock your hips. She's like, when you're having the contraction, she put like my right leg was laying on the bed like bent, and then she put up my left leg, and she was like, just rock your hips back and forth. When you're having the contraction and you feel like you have to push, don't push, but don't resist it. Because I was like straightening my legs, resisting it. And she was like, she was like, just rock your hips. So that's a good tip to anybody who hasn't had their baby yet. If you go natural and you really feel like you have to push and you can't, it helped me for real. So at about 9:50, they checked me. They're like, oh, you're 9 centimeters with a little lip. Like, you're almost 10. She was like, you're going to be, oh, I'm sorry. She was like, you're going to be, let me hurry up. She was like, you're going to be 10 in a few minutes. And, don't be fussy for the camera. I'm waking her up out of her sleep. She doesn't like that. And so, they're like, shh. And so they're like, you're almost 10 or whatever. That's at about 9:50, 10 o'clock. And so of course I had to wait for the doctor to get back, having to push and everything. She's like, your bag of water is bulging. Basically, the doctor got back at about 10:20. 10:20, yeah. And they came in, broke my water, and I knew I couldn't push because my water wasn't broken. Even though I just wanted to push and be like, forget that doctor. But I knew I couldn't push because my water wasn't broke. So I'm pushing and everything, and no, he breaks my water. I push, and she was born at 10:40 a.m. on her due date, December 31st. And it was amazing. It was so exciting, and it was all natural, no epidural, no drugs, anything. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And so let me go before she gets fussy, but I will talk to you all later. And congrats to everybody else who's had their baby, and good luck to everybody who's still pregnant. Bye.